Hey y'all, so we record this show in Michigan, and we had the privilege of hosting the president in mid-Michigan at the GM Proving Grounds. And was it Midland, Milford? It was in Milford.
It was Milford.
It was in Milford. And let me just say, the turnout maybe was not what the president was expecting. There was multiple protests centered around data centers. There were people getting thrown out for calling him a pedophile protector. It was kind of the greatest hits. It was kind of Michigan's greatest hits in dunking on President Trump. And I wanted to talk about it a little bit because to me it felt like, is MAGA running out of steam in Michigan?
Well, I will say to you, Norris, that we had a Distill Social team in Milford at the GM's Proving Ground at the rally. And for people that have been following us for a long time, they will know that Gina and I have been going to Trump rallies for years. Like, that is kind of where we got our start. And we've always, honestly, the honest truth is that I kind of always get a little bit excited about going to them because it's kind of like a carnival feel. Your expectations are low in terms of...
And you're going to see something crazy.
Correct, exactly. Mm-hmm. It's going to be... Your expectations are high in terms of entertainment, low in terms of intellect, but that's fine, just a little bit of fun. But I have to say, our guys that went out there on Monday to Milford, they kind of... We'd spent hours before that sort of setting them up, saying, there's going to be like all of these tables as you enter, vendors with, all sorts of Trump shit, Trump paraphernalia. There'll probably be buses, of people being bussed in. And none of that happened. The guys are like messaging us and they're saying, hey guys, it's not, it's literally, there's hardly anyone here. The vibes are very low. Honestly, the first piece of content we got was apparently there was basically no porta potties inside the venue.
God.
And there were very few loser toilets available to people.
What is this, Woodstock?
And a woman actually pissed on the ground.
No, are you serious?
Yeah.
Oh gosh.
So we got a video.
Stay classy.
Oh my gosh.
So we got a video of that. But it was just like, holy shit, what are we doing? So I look, and I'm not going to judge because there's nothing worse than being somewhere where you need to go to the loo.
When you got to go, you got to go.
But anyway, it was kind of wild. But yeah, apparently the vibe was pretty low. He was definitely. I watched the actual speech itself, and like he was talking about shit like he said. I've been better to you than what your parents have been.
Oh, so he thinks he's like actually Daddy Trump.
He does.
He thinks
exactly.
He's really
absolutely
Trump.
Leaned into it. So
God.
it was crazy. But yeah, the guys were saying that it was nowhere near as sort of fun or the vibe was low.
Well, and that was the thing too, that I always kind of got the vibe that the people who go to Trump rallies actually have a great time at them. Like, again, politics aside, these are people who look like they're enjoying themselves, and that was not the vibe that I got.
I agree. I think I haven't on social media. I think I've kind of blocked myself from seeing that sort of stuff on social media just because like I don't care enough to see it. But the things I did see were a large anti-data center protest, which was very interesting to see that this is an issue on both sides of the aisle. I mean, I kind of knew it was, and I want to know like who were the folks that did it? Were they Republicans? Were they Democrats? Were they Trump supporters? Like,
I think, as I understand it, was pretty agnostic. There was both sides.
Yeah.
So there was like Republicans. You know what? And I think we've got to be careful with this team thing. You're either a Republican or a Democrat. I think there's just, a whole lot of people just individual human beings are scared of AI and are basically saying, I don't want data centers, and they're sick of money and politics. I think a lot of people, most individuals that aren't billionaires, I think it's fair to say that they're, this is a bipartisan issue.
Yeah, these are definitely nonpartisan issues. And like when I talk to young people too, like especially ones who are apolitical, they're like, I don't consider myself a Democrat. I don't consider myself as a Republican. I consider both sides as like stupid and doing nothing for me. And like, I believe that we should not be wasting our energy on these AI data centers and also like supporting pedophiles because someone yelled like, oh, you're a pedophile protector. And Trump responded by calling the guy a communist. But last I checked, being anti-pedophile does not equivocate to being a communist.
I just want to say word to the Red Scare coming back. By the way, like that was a thing I did not have on my, like when I sat back and thought, man, how are your 30s going to go? If somebody says, yeah, man, McCarthyism's going to be back. Like, you know, the thing that I saw and I took away from this that I would say I find interesting beyond just the data center thing, because
Yes.
most of the data centers are going to have to go in rural communities anyway, which traditionally are red.
Sucks. Yeah.
But I think the thing for me is it seems like every time Trump specifically comes to Michigan, he gets static, right? And he very narrowly won Michigan. He won Michigan, but it was a very narrow margin. But it seems like that energy, I don't want to say has completely shifted on him, but the sands have moved quite a bit underneath Trump when it comes to Michigan, not just because of the state of the economy, but we just had our glorious new Gordie Howe Bridge opened up, which I did a piece of content on that, which you could check out on all of our social media platforms. But people are pissed off at this administration because of the effect that not opening that bridge has on trade, the constant tariffs that he's putting on our neighbor, Canada. And our economy is so tied in with Canada and so tied in with the auto industry. And people are pissed. People are frustrated.
It's so interesting that you say that, Norris, because it shouldn't be lost on any of us that particular rally was held at a General Motors at their proving ground in Milford, as we mentioned. And Mary Burrow was basically, who's the CEO of General Motors, was next to him the entire time.
And introduced him too.
Correct.
Yep.
Introduced him, showed him a drag race beforehand, like really. And I think she's going to get a little bit of flack from that. I just think when we're in a situation,
particularly when the UAW has now endorsed a strong progressive candidate over here in Abdullah El Sayed for Senate. We are seeing a major rift between Trump and his sort of corporate allies and kind of where the electorate is right now.
I just want to quote a few comments that he made, which is really disturbing to me in terms of the fact, we talk about the fact that we're definitely in a post-truth society at the moment, where basically the truth doesn't matter and lies are absolutely acceptable from anybody.
Agreed.
And I want to remind everyone, this is the President of the United States saying, we are more respected than ever around the world.
It's just not true.
Yikes.
I can say that we absolutely are not.
Yeah.
Unequivocally, we are not.
Yeah.
His other comment was, no other country in the world does mail-in ballots. Once again, I would like to just put my hand on any fucking Bible and tell you I come from a country that does mail-in ballots.
I also have voted with an absentee ballot. I am an Italian citizen, and I have literally voted, and it's gotten sent to my house in the United States, and I've sent it back. So
There you go. So bullshit.
There we go. Yeah.
The other thing that he mentioned was, and I just, if you are listening to anyone that's representing or talking about Trump or talking on behalf of Trump at the moment, and he himself on Monday said, in 2.5 years, you may, and I repeat, may have a new president. He keeps dropping this in there. And it just, I think that some people I've heard them say, oh no, it's just rhetoric, it's just rhetoric. We fucking fell for this in 2016. We fell for it again in 2024. We have to stop just assuming that this prick is just,
It's joking.
It's
No.
joking, because he's not.
Also, like, at the rally, John James thanked President Trump for coming back to Michigan and said, he said, and I quote, "Thank you, Mr. President, for coming back to Michigan where you won 3 times."
It's just not
Trump,
true.
in fact, lost Michigan in 2020.
Yep.
So it's just their judgment is so clouded by just like lies that it kind of baffles my mind that they just keep this bit going.
They have to, because it's the only thing they have.
Yeah.
Like, this is the thing. At this point, the election denial thing is the only thing that galvanizes the base currently. They're losing the base on Iran. They're losing the base on the economy. They're losing the base on... They're even losing the base on ICE. There were multiple interviews that we conducted as well as other outlets conducted, where you had people who attended the rally who were 3-time Trump voters who said, hey, they're not deporting the murderers and rapists and criminals like they said they would. One lady even says, I believe it was to Channel 4, that she was like, my brother-in-law, I can't remember, she said her brother-in-law or her husband, but she was like, my family member was due to get his citizenship, in a couple weeks, and they denied him, and now he has to self-deport. Like, this is not a issue that people are putting themselves in camps anymore. It is becoming what we see every day and what is the reality and the lie they are trying to spin.
I agree. And I think that I can speak hopefully for myself and other people when I say, like, either we directly have been impacted by the Trump administration in one way or another, or we know someone who's been directly impacted by the Trump administration one way or another. Some more harsh, some less harsh. A lot of my friends are the children of immigrants, and they've had to deal with, like ICE in their neighborhoods and things like that. And I obviously go to a public university where these funding cuts are like impacting the cost of tuition and just like the quality of our education. And so, I mean, for young people, we're definitely getting impacted by this. We can't afford gas, can't afford groceries. I mean, that hasn't really changed. But it just is kind of insane to me that these people are looking at the world through these rose-colored lenses that don't necessarily exist.
Yeah.
It's just they're making it up in their heads. And that's why I think MAGA as a cult and as a concept is very, very troubling.
Yeah.
But I think we can all agree that by the looks of that particular rally on Monday, it's starting to it's losing its gloss.
There's cracks.
Losing its
There's
gloss.
cracks in
Yeah.
the foundation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Welcome everybody to Point of Disorder. I am your host, Norris Howard, and before we introduce our wonderful Intrepid cast, I just want to say follow us on all of our social media platforms at Point of Disorder on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, and you can also follow at Distill Social. Joining me on the show today, to my left, we will start with representative of the youth, Stella. What's up?
Hey guys, representative of the youth is kind of crazy. But hey guys, my name's Stella. I lead the Michigan College Democrats. And school starts in right about a month, and I'm kind of dreading it. So
I feel that.
hashtag let's go.
And then also we have one of the fan favorites, Julie's in the building. What's up?
Yay.
G'day, I'm back, and I'm always happy to be a representative, be next to a representative of the youth as a representative of the old people. So thanks for joining us, Stella.
Thank you.
And I am just representative. But, I did want to bring this up because this story broke late last night, and it's a downer, so I want to kind of get this out the way, but it is very important that we talk about this. A new report came out to say that the Interlochen camp up in northern Michigan, where people for decades have sent their kids to, who are gifted in music and theater, it has now come out that over the course of about 50 years, 40 some odd adults have allegedly abused over 70 children over that window. Now, these are allegations. There is nothing solid that has come out by way of any criminal charges, but it just goes to show how so much abuse is happening even right next door to us, even in some of our most beloved institutions. And by the way, yes, this is the same music camp that had a cabin named after Jeffrey Epstein. That kind of should have clued us off to something.
Yeah.
But hindsight is 2020. I want to start with Julie because you were the one who sent this story to us.
Yeah, I mean, I think the reason that it struck me is that we've been obviously, I feel like we get distracted constantly about the next shiny thing that's happening, which is obviously by design. So the Epstein files have definitely not been discussed for quite some time in terms of front of mind. We've not discussed it here on the podcast for a long time. And I think this particular portion of it, which we always knew, as you mentioned, Norris, Epstein, it's always been known that there was a potential link between Epstein and Interlochen. A lot of people wanted to deny it at the beginning, but there's enough there to suggest that there were problems. I think the heartening part about it is that an investigation has been happening.
Yep.
So they haven't just ignored it and like swept it under the carpet, in a lot of other, like basically the Epstein files is
Right.
happening with them. So I am very happy that that is happening. But it's kind of overwhelming to me to think about the fact that 50 years, so over 70 kids over 50 years have been allegedly sexually abused.
Yeah.
And surely one of those kids over that time have grown up, or even as they were children, mentioned it to an adult.
To somebody.
To somebody,
Yep.
right? To somebody, whether it be a counsellor, whether it be a friend, whether it be, a loved one. And it's so hard for me to imagine that they wouldn't have then escalated it in some way. So I just find this whole thing, I mean, we've not got the full details as to what's happened as yet. It's just sort of
very early days.
It's very early days, but it really shocks me that, a grown adult has not been aware of this situation and has done, basically, this is the first time anything's been done about it.
Yeah, I think that I know a lot of kids, a lot of musically inclined kids, Norris and I were talking about this, wanted to go to Interlochen. Their dream was to go to Interlochen. I wanted to go for musical theater. You wanted to go for violin.
Yeah.
And I think that's just so interesting that this is a place where kids aspire to go. Young kids as young as, I don't know, 10, 11, 12.
Yeah.
And all of this came out. The Epstein stuff obviously came out. And for context, for those that are listening and don't know about the Michigan music schools, which I don't expect you to, but there's two big ones, Blue Lake and Interlochen. And so there were a lot of people who were team Interlochen, and I feel like they've all converted to Blue Lake. So I personally am now a Blue Lake fan. I am not standing Interlochen anymore. But again, with the notion of us not talking about Epstein, us not talking about these issues, Interlochen has had so many issues, especially the ties to Epstein. And we were talking about this outside of the podcast, but if it's not in front of our faces on a news screen, it feels like we completely forget about it. And so something like this, something as big as this, 47 adults accused of abusing over 70 kids over the course of 50 years. That is huge, but it's something we're going to forget in the next week because it's not on our news feeds anymore. And I think that is so disheartening to even consider.
And I think absolutely, but I think it's a reminder of the fact that we need to keep our eye. We need to be looking after our children. I mean, if we cannot protect our children, that should be the very, very basis of any society. Society's obligation is children are more susceptible. They are more powerless, let's just say. They need the protection of not just their parents, but society as a whole. And it's just so disturbing to me that not only this hasn't come out before over this 50-year period, but also at the same time, you're right, Stella, next week they'll have moved on to another.
It angers me on a separate level because I've known people who have gone to Interlochen very closely, people I would consider very close friends, who have been there, who went multiple times, multiple summers to go to Interlochen, and now it almost feels like, is there a conversation I need to have with them? Is there something that I could do to maybe help them process through something? If something did something happen, did something happen to somebody that they knew? Now it raises all these other questions, not just for us as a society, but for me personally as well. And then as somebody who has worked with youth, it just hits me in a different way because I ran an after school program for 4 years. I could not imagine any of my kids coming to me and said, so-and-so touched me or so-and-so did something to me, and me not personally bringing the wrath of every heaven and hell on this person.
Do we know if any elected official is called for an investigation into this?
Well, from what we know, this investigation was internal.
Yeah.
It was Interlochen got word of something from someone.
Okay.
And they began their own investigation. Now, my issue with that is that leaves no room for external scrutiny. Mm-hmm. So for me, if I was a state legislator, I would immediately say the state needs to be involved, and we need we need criminal responsibility for those who may have
Agreed.
done something.
Yeah, and I mean, I think we do have to remember the fact that, and not to be a Debbie Downer on this, but one of the issues that it's so hard to then, if you think about these 70 kids over 50 years, the intergenerational trauma that this causes in terms of, you know, the kids that are, you know, going to school now,
Yep.
that are the children or grandchildren of these people that were impacted. The intergenerational trauma is just so real. And look, power to Interlochen for doing this investigation. But you're right, Norris, it needs to go further and we need to find out exactly what happened and criminal charges need to be laid. I do believe some of the abusers, as I understand it, have passed away.
Yeah.
So, and obviously some of the children that were abused have obviously,
Yeah.
you know,
Over 50 years is to be expected.
Yeah, time
yeah.
changes, but it doesn't mean that we should not be holding those that were abused accountable and helping those that abused accountable and those that were abused helping them in some way, shape or form.
And
So
give them
it's-
justice. And get
Exactly.
them justice.
Exactly.
Well, we're going to change gears now and talk about everybody's favorite subject, the Michigan Senate race.
my God.
Listen,
wow.
listen.
I forgot to put vodka in my water bottle.
I too am, I think, a little bit too sober for this conversation. But we're in the nitty gritty. This is the home stretch. This is the last pod before all of you go out and cast your ballots. And I just want to say, and I'm going to look dead in the camera when I say this, get your ass up and go vote.
Yeah.
Okay? Point blank, period. If you haven't done it already, go to your local clerk's office. They sent you a ballot. It's right there. I know it. It's been sitting on your dining room table for weeks. It's there. I know it. But even then, just go to the clerk's office, vote in person. If you're worried about the whole mail-in ballot thing, go out and vote.
It's also so easy. It takes like 3 minutes. I dragged my brother along for the very first time. First time voter, eh.
Well done.
All right.
But he literally was like, it's going to take so long. I'm going to have to fill out all this paperwork. I'm like, no, you just walk in and they give you paper and you do it. And he was like, was done before I even got my ballot. And I was like, bro, it really is not that hard. So if it can take a 18-year-old boy like 3 minutes, girl, you'll be fine.
Go on your lunch break.
Go on your lunch break.
Yeah,
It's
go
so
on your lunch
easy.
break. You ain't got no excuse, is my point.
Yeah.
But I want us to start here, and we're going to start with Jim Blanchard. I know that sounds a weird place to start, but it's indicative of kind of where the energy is in the race right now.
Yeah, I think what's really interesting about this is it's exactly that, Norris. We are in a situation right now where we have two Democratic candidates in the primary for the US Senate. We have Haley Stevens versus Abdul El-Sayed, and they certainly have different energy around them. They both have a lot of energy around them, I'll say that. But Haley has, let's say, people that are Democratic stalwarts, let's just say that.
Yeah,
they've been around for a long...
The base, the
Correct.
Democratic machine base is in her camp.
It is. She was recently endorsed, obviously, by Gretchen Whitmer, our current governor. But we're talking here about former Michigan Governor Jim Blanchard. And I'm pretty sure Stella probably doesn't remember him.
I don't even remember him. He was governor, I
Literally
believe, like in the late 70s, early 80s.
That's right.
I was born in 2005. So.
Okay, all right.
Jesus
So you're making...
Yeah.
All right. So we're all feeling really good at this point.
Yeah.
But anyway, Jim Blanchard, the former Michigan governor, was recently at Oceana County Dem Club, I believe, and there was an event up there. And I think a lot of Democrats who have been in high positions over the years expect that they'll just walk into a room full of Democrats or Democratic-leaning people and expect that they'll just sort of bow down to them. I think that's and I've seen it myself, like people do have a lot of respect for the older, statesmen, et cetera, et cetera. Anyway, I believe that this particular event, he ended his discussion with basically calling for everyone to support Haley Stevens. That was his sort of call to action at the end. And he was met with a room booing him. And I just don't think he expected that. Let's talk about that for a minute.
Michigan loves their booze, I will say. I mean, this isn't the first time Haley Stevens has been mentioned or done something, and there have been booze following that. So,
But it seems like, I mean, I can't imagine the Oceana County Dems is basically a room full of, leftist.
Hyper left. Yeah,
Agreed.
hyper left Mamdaniites.
agree.
No, but I was talking with our producer before the show about this. Is that you're absolutely correct, right? When it came to the Democratic base in a state like Michigan, we respect our elder statesmen. There was a bench that we had that we knew who kind of was next up, coming up to go to the state legislature, potentially run for office in Washington. There was kind of a slate, and we knew what that slate was. Half of the party was going to be coming from Metro Detroit, and maybe you get somebody from out west from time to time. The thing is now, and what the Democratic Party nationwide is reckoning with, is that there is a generational shift and there's an ideological shift. Majority of Democrats have moved left significantly. We're just talking about within the party. Majority of Democrats have moved left on a lot of issues. So if you have that, and you have a base that has not moved with that electorate, you're going to have friction. Yeah. And so when we're talking about outstate, you're talking about Oceana County, you're talking about way up there, Baldwin County and places like that, traditionally may be red counties, but have blue dots in their population centers. These are people who are all for Medicare for all because they're starting to see their health clinics shut down. They're starting to have to drive an hour and a half to go to the hospital. They're starting to see their jobs dry up because of consolidation of wealth and small plants and refineries are closing down. And so you're seeing all this impact on a very visceral, personal level at the ground level in some of these smaller cities and counties, where I think in places like Detroit, that has moved a little slower because by virtue of being a big city, it's a little bit more diversified in how people are making a living.
Also, I will say when we look at where Haley Stevens has campaigned, she has not campaigned north of Birmingham.
Okay. Yep.
So it's obviously, if you don't go to these areas and campaign, and I understand you have a full-time job in Congress, but if you're not going to these areas, obviously they're why would I vote for you? What have you done to earn my vote?
You don't care about us.
Seems like you do not care about us. And that's why I visited the Upper Peninsula for the first time ever this summer, and all I saw were Abdul signs everywhere. There were Abdul signs everywhere. And I was shocked to see it. But I was talking to my friends who are also politically engaged, and they were like, yeah, Abdul shows up and people appreciate it.
Yeah.
People recognize that.
So we were talking about this last week with Sri Tanada, and we've established that the reason that he keeps getting reelected, one of the reasons is he shows up. And so that's
particularly
an
in
interesting
Detroit.
point. I think that we can't discount also the changing demographics across the state. And we're talking about not just age, but there has been, during the pandemic, we've got to remember that a lot of people did move north or bought places up north that they're now moving to. So there is certainly a blue, I would not say blue wave, but a blue ripple that's happening.
A blue drip drop. A blue drip drop.
Up in these areas. And also we've got to remember that there's a whole lot of people that live in rural Michigan that are farmers or come from the land that are being impacted by a lot of the shit that Trump is doing. And once again, this populist messaging about Medicare for all and, money out of politics, these are all very popular. Even if you voted for Trump in 2024, we talk about this all the time, Norris, the fact that, it's not outside of the realms of possibility that there will be farmers or people living in rural areas that are pissed off with Trump and they may not be excited about someone like Haley because, she's very Democratic.
Party politics.
But someone like Abdul could actually appeal to them.
I mean, we know that Michigan has a streak of voting for outside candidates. I mean, this is a state that voted for Jesse Jackson in a Democratic primary. This is a state he won in Michigan. This is a state where Bernie Sanders won the Democratic primary. It is not within the realm of possibility to expect or to see a sort of outside machine politics candidate win in a state like Michigan. But I do want to bring up something about this particularly because as we know, endorsements, you talked about Gretchen Whitmer endorsing Haley Stevens, and we know the endorsement game is really, really big in particularly the state level and Senate politics. The people who are endorsing Haley Stevens right now, beyond just being your mainline mainstream Democrats, are people who have not necessarily laid out their political future, are not people who seem to be positioning themselves to stay in politics. We know Gretchen Whitmer's on her final year of her term. She has not indicated that she'll be pursuing any other office. Dana Nessel, the same thing, has not indicated that she'll be pursuing a different office. You have a number of retired or stepping away. You know, Gary Peters has endorsed her. He is stepping away from politics. So I want to ask Stella, when you see that a bunch of old people who are saying, I'm taking my ball and going home, endorsing one candidate, but at the same time you see people who are currently in office endorsing another candidate, what does that say to you as a young voter?
Well, see, I'm already very politically engaged, so I may not be the best person to ask, and I know how I'm voting, and obviously it's not for the establishment candidate. But also I will say, like, with these people, and I want to emphasize Governor Whitmer especially, because it's just been hit after hit after hit for her. Like, we saw it's really started with lame duck, and then went into like the data centers, then vetoing the union bill, and then there's like 10 million
Line
other
five.
things.
Line five is a big
most
one.
recently,
Yes.
yeah.
And so, like, you're seeing this as a young person, and you're seeing her social media comments just be flooded with, like, birds of a data center fly together when she's endorsing candidates like this. It's like we know where her politics lie, and so it's literally just going to be a continuation of those politics, and so young people can kind of see through that. And it's kind of upsetting that, like, a lot of people's trust has been lost in the governor, but that was just, like, yet another hit. That was, like, one of 10 straws that broke the camel's back. And so it's just like a lot of these people are not folks that invigorate young people. When you see someone endorsed by Bernie Sanders and AOC, you know the politics in which the politics they represent is essentially what I'm saying. And so, like, when you see, you know, the older folks who are like about to retire, it's like, yeah, that's not going to invigorate any youth base. It just doesn't. Like, factually, it doesn't.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's kind of my 2 cents there.
Yeah, and, you know, for me, I have to look at it because, again, as somebody in the middle, like, a Gretchen Whitmer endorsement should engage somebody like me, right? Like, it should hit me in a way that it probably doesn't hit a lot of other people. But I think, Stella, to your point, is that you do have a lot of people currently frustrated with Governor Whitmer. The data center Sam Altman thing completely, I mean, we saw it in real time where
that was a crazy
you
switch
just
up,
had
crazy
you
switch
just
up,
had
bro.
hundreds of thousands of people who instantly went, oh, this is what we're doing now, bet I don't rock with you no more.
And it's not even that. It's just, like, kind of disheartening in the way that, like, so many young people thought this was going to be, like, the candidate for our futures and, like, our clean energy future and, like, our just, like, our futures in general, right? And, like, you see that happen in the last year of her term, and young people are just like, what did we do all of this door knocking, volunteering, time and like all the time and energy we put into that campaign to get her elected and beat the Republican? It just feels like a waste.
And that is really scary to me, quite honestly, Stella. I think about this as someone that's, you know, organised a whole shit ton of people over the years, and for Governor Whitmer specifically, and it scares me that young people are turned off. It scares me that young people have their expectations. You know, they go out there, they get excited about a candidate, they, you know, help get them elected, and the adrenaline, you feel really good about it. You feel
You're part of something.
You are. You're part of something. You're part of a wave, a change, whatever it might be, because everyone tells you voting for me or supporting me is your way of making a better future for yourself, right? That's why you do it. You don't go and give up your time, talent, and money for just because it's, you know, for shits and giggles. You want to actually make a change, and it scares me that young people that may or have in the past done that and now seeing this, like you said, particularly the environmental issue, that's something that I feel really passionately about when it comes to young people and the sort of society and world we're leaving to young people. And for them to feel like they've just been sort of spat on, it really scares me that they won't come out again and again and again, because it is so important. Being involved in politics is critical. So that really, it does frighten me that young people are losing their enthusiasm and their connection to government and their connection to politics. It really is quite scary. But I would like to just suggest I think there is one major thing that young people are seeing, or people in general are seeing, that's pissing them off and is like kind of pushing them to look differently at politics, our politics in particular. It's the billionaire list. And I read this list the other day, and I think it's really important to sort of let this sink in. Elon Musk's wealth in 2012 was $2 billion. In 2026, it's $719 billion.
Wow.
Jeff Bezos's wealth in 2012 was $18.4 billion. In 2026, it's $255 billion.
Jesus Christ.
Mark Zuckerberg's wealth, 2012, was $17.5 billion. In 2026, it's $212 billion. Now, if you layer that on top of the fact that the federal minimum wage in 2009 was $7.25 per hour, 2026, guess what it is, guys? $7.25.
Wow, go figure.
You can't look at that and pretend that people aren't seeing that.
No, exactly. And I think that, like, what young people are seeing especially is that the candidates that they're like volunteering, spending their time on and fighting for, like, have gone and kind of stabbed them in the back. And go figure, it's normally establishment moderate Democrats that are letting this type of stuff fly, which is why we're not, very privy to advocating for these sorts of candidates if they end up winning in the general election.
Yeah, you've got to remember that all three of those characters, Bezos, Musk, and Zuckerberg, are implanted in young people's lives incredibly.
Oh, in an intimate way.
In a very intimate way.
Intimate way.
They're on their phones. It's how they.
It's how they're so
live.
rich.
Yeah.
It's how they're so rich.
Yeah.
We cannot escape these three dickheads. So I'm gonna just say it. We can't. But I want to ask you a very pointed question, Stella, because you talked about the youth supporting particular candidates, right?
Yeah.
We are now T-minus, 5 days out from the election.
Oh, I'm sick.
Here's my question, and just based on your experience as an organizer, if Abdul wins, is your job harder or easier to organize? And if Stevens wins, is your job harder or easier to organize for the general election? Who makes your job as an organizer easier?
I mean, undoubtedly, I would say the more, and this spans across the state, but the more progressive candidates, obviously, like Abdul right now is the face of the progressive movement statewide, but there are a bunch of also congressional candidates that are like invigorating young people to get involved, and they kind of see themselves in them. A conversation that I've had multiple times with multiple people as the president of the Michigan College Democrats is, if Haley were to win this primary, I'm not voting in the Senate. I'm skipping the Senate part of the general ballot. I'm not voting for her. And there are folks out there that would rather see one term from Mike Rogers and then them being defeated, like him being defeated by a Democrat, than seeing Haley Stevens win.
Jesus.
Which scares me a lot, because I go to obviously a very like liberal campus, and you're not going to find a bunch of people who are invigorated to support and uplift a candidate who is funded by the corporations that are leading us to suffer as students, and also kind of like someone who has like a $40 million crutch to boost her campaign because she doesn't really have many talking points or policy points.
Yeah, so I guess my follow-up to that is then, how then is there a justification for then allowing the person who is 1,000% just going to be a mouthpiece for the Trump administration and Mike Rogers to then win that election.
I don't agree with that notion. Obviously, like whatever Democrat wins, I will be voting for them in the general election. But just being enthusiastic and advocating for Abdul Sayed versus Haley Stevens are going to be so different on college campuses. Like, I don't know anyone within the college Democrats who is enthusiastic about campaigning for Haley. Not a single one. I can't name a single one.
And we've discussed this before, obviously, on the podcast. It is a concern. But I think we need to flesh out a little bit how we actually, any thoughts you have, because obviously it is a scenario that you're thinking about, Stella. You are an important leader of the youth movement on the left in Michigan. So I'm sure you're thinking about it. How do we have conversations with these people that are saying, I am not going to vote in the Senate race if Haley's the nominee? How are you thinking about that strategically?
I think it goes to the notion of electability too. Like, Haley advocates on being electable. She's like, I'm the most electable candidate. I'm the candidate that's going to beat Mike Rogers. But Michigan has some of the highest youth voter turnout in the nation. And if young people are not going to turn out, then a Republican is inevitably going to win in Michigan, statewide. And so I think, like, being able to see through that bullshit is very, very important going into that general election, or going into this primary election, actually. And just making sure that, like, young people are holding the line into this primary, and then God forbid Abdul wins and it's going to be a cakewalk for young people for, like, organizing on college campuses. But honestly, I don't have a full-fledged answer as to, like, how we are going to pull people in to vote for Haley other than just disdain for Trump. Oh, you hate Trump, vote Democrat. But that's been the strategy for Democrats for the past, since I was like 12 when Trump was the president for the first time. So, I mean, it just feels like it's an endless cycle of every single election, Democrats doing the exact same thing, and then electing candidates that they think are electable, and then losing because young people won't turn out and elect those candidates.
And I think we need to note there, in 2022, Michigan had the highest youth turnout of any state in the country.
Period.
And that's because we had reproductive rights
Roe-
on the
Roe-
ballot.
Yep.
So we have to acknowledge that. Roe fell that year.
Yes.
Reproductive rights was literally on the ballot in 2022. That fell off in 2024. So I think that, I really think we do have to think strategically. And I know that you're on a wing and a prayer, hoping that your job is easy.
So scared. Every day I wake up and I'm like, oh, I'm filled with a sense of, like, dread and anxiety about this election in a week.
I think for me is that, you know, we have to, and people are not going to like what I say, but we have to not allow ourselves to be one or two issue voters. We cannot allow ourselves to be that way. There's a myriad of things I disagree with many candidates on, but also at the same time, I know that I can't vote for certain people because they legitimately view me as less than human. And therefore, I can never support that person,
Exactly.
right? Now,
Exactly.
I understand certain people have very strong moral lines in the sand, and I respect those lines in the sand. I do think, however, that when we're looking at where each party is currently positioned, it becomes so difficult for young people to reckon with the fact that the base is doing this and they see progressive standing for, I don't want to say the complete opposite, but definitely a more idealized, more potent version of kind of what our nation is supposed to be. If Haley is the nominee, I still believe that you get 40% of most of what people are talking about. That doesn't make me happy. I don't think it makes a lot of people happy. But I do think that you have someone like Mike Rogers who fully will fight against you.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Right?
100%.
And so it becomes a choice of, do you go with the candidate? And I'm speaking in terms of if I'm putting myself in the mind frame of a young
person who's
young
like,
person,
I,
young
like,
Democratic voter.
cannot vote for either candidate, so I just won't vote at all.
Right. So for me, I think I just, as my personal beliefs is I never don't vote. I always vote for every
Same here.
every race.
Yep.
But I do think if I could get that 40%, and then I could get you out the box when somebody else comes along, and I have no issue primarying you, but I just need this actual evil person to like not be in place, then maybe we have a better chance. The issue that I see that I 1,000% agree with you is that I think the young people are sick of that sort of incremental progress, and that becomes the issue. Listen, I'm a black person in America. Incremental progress was all I had for the vast majority of my life, right? So I'm kind of used to it.
Yeah.
But I also recognize that my younger cousins and my friends that are younger than me who are also black, they don't want that. They don't want 20 years of incremental progress. I've had a young person tell me they were jealous of the fact that I got to vote for Barack Obama. It's, I wish I knew what it was like to be hopeful about politics, to see somebody who actually like made the presidency look good.
So what we're talking about here is harm minimization, right?
Yeah, harm reduction.
And I think that there's two things that we need to think about. First of all, there's an education portion of this that we need to... We all, like, I have privilege. We all sitting here have a form of privilege. It's different privilege. It comes in different shapes or form and shapes and sizes. But what we need to educate people on is, first of all, that sometimes we have an obligation to actually not vote just for ourselves, but to vote for others that can't or that aren't able to, or whatever it might be.
Or will be harmed.
Right? So we may not be harmed by some of the things that, even if Mike Rogers gets in, some of us may not be harmed by that, but we have to teach people that there are other people. So empathy, the ability of basically going into that ballot box and going, you know what, this is not just for me, this is for someone else, this is for future generations. The other thing that we need to think about is the fact that if Hayley Stevens does become the nominee and she wins the election, becomes our US Senator, it is so much fucking easier to move her, even if it's a small amount, then we'll never have any influence on Mike Rogers.
Yeah, you'll have none.
Never
100%.
will. So I think they're the two things that we need to think about. And, you know, try to educate people on... It's hard because, you know, we all want perfection. Like you said, we would all love to have a candidate or a representative from a political perspective that, you know, that
It's like
that gives us 99% of what we want.
Yeah, the cookie cutter ideal.
For every issue that matters to us. We absolutely would. But at the end of the day...
It never happens.
It's never going to happen.
Will.
Yeah,
right?
As a black man, as a woman, as you know,
it never will. Like let's say this now. Let's say Abdul El Sayed wins. He goes to the Senate. There is only so much he will ever be able to do.
Correct.
He is one man,
100%.
right? Now he could build a coalition. He could do other things, but we have to also be realistic about our politics and say, let's say he gets Medicare for all. Fantastic. Will he be able to do everything promised? Impossibility.
I mean, we're already seeing it with Zoran. Like, Zoran had all of these outlined goals, and he's like spoken to the people, being like, "We're working on it. We can't get it to you now, but it's something that we are working towards," and has already gotten a bunch of his accomplishments done.
Do you know how happy New Yorkers are right now?
New Yorkers, I'm jealous of New Yorkers.
Exactly.
They look like they're having a blast. Like, their serotonin levels are through the roof.
That's what I'm saying. But just even having a person who is moving the chains in the right direction, right? So for me, you know, the positive I'm taking from this, and I think we'll be able to close on this, is that the positive I'm taking from this race, because everybody is so tired and distraught and overwhelmed, I'm taking a positive from this. I've never seen this much energy in a primary before.
Agreed.
And I think...
And we're in the middle of it.
Yeah, and I think that everybody is starting to realize that your real ideological battles politically happen in your primaries.
Yes.
Happen in your local elections.
Yes.
Happen before November. Everybody thinks the election is in November. It is not. The elections are now.
Here now.
This is where you get the person you actually really like, and then they could go up against the person you're diametrically opposed to.
And then again, we saw that at the Michigan Democratic Party convention, where we got all of these progressive candidates that we wanted to see on our November ballot through. And so it's possible. It is a possibility. If young people just show up, organize, knock doors. Like, I'm knocking doors tomorrow, and I think on Saturday, just takes a couple hours out of your day. You get a few steps in. It's really not that hard, guys. So I'm just saying you have no excuse to go vote and maybe pound some pavement.
Yeah, but I think we're going to close out there. And listen, the next time you guys hear from us, all this conjecture will have become reality because we will probably have a nominee by then and we'll be able to move on. Is there any closing thoughts before we say goodbye to the people?
I'm really nervous to see how this race ends up. And I just hope everyone gets off their couch or their kitchen table or kitchen chair, whatever you're sitting on, and to a polling place, please. Respectfully.
For me, the primary, yes, it's the opportunity for people to have their voices heard of either party, basically. But I think the other thing, it's such an important time. We have to all start thinking about how we come together because I think, quite honestly, and I don't want to sound too doomsday-ish, but I feel like this particular election in terms of in November, I know we're talking about the primary right now, but this is one of the most important elections of our times. I revert back to what Trump said at his rally here in Michigan on Monday that, he is fully ready to fuck us over. 3 ways to Tuesday, whether it be with our ability to vote and access to voting or any other thing. So I think that we just have to remember how important it is. And as tired, as exhausted, and as frustrated and as scared as we all are, we've all got an obligation to do what we can.
Agree.
And my parting words are, if you sick of what's happening in Washington or in Lansing or wherever, act like it. Stop being a punk. Go vote. Like, seriously.
I heard this thing once, and it's like, if you complain about the state of the world but don't vote, you have no right to complain. Sorry.
Yeah.
That's just how it is. Unless you're under 18. Then, of course, you have every right to complain
do
because
your
you
thing.
can't vote.
Yeah, do your thing.
Do your thing. But, like, if you are of voting age and are complaining but don't do anything about it, that's not allowed.
I ain't got
on my
nothing for
parts.
you, dog. I ain't got nothing for you. Anyway, that's going to be the show today. We thank you all for sitting down with us and hearing us blabber on about politics. Don't forget that you can follow us on social media. That's Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, and others at Point of Disorder and at Distill Social. Stella, where can they find you?
Find me on at @MICollegeDems on Instagram and Twitter /X, whatever you guys want to call it. @MICollegeDems.org on whatever search engine you use. And then donate to the Michigan College Democrats PAC because we need as much resources as we can going into this election cycle. So.
Not the PACs. Anyway.
Okay,
Not the
listen. We
PACs.
have
No,
one
I'm
act
joking.
blue.
I'm joking. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
And that's a wrap on today's episode of Point of Disorder. We'd like to extend a huge thank you to everyone who listened today. And if you like us, give us a like, a subscribe, or a review on any place you get your podcasts. And don't forget to follow us on social media at Distill Social and at The Guerrilla Politic. This is the Point of Disorder podcast, signing off. Stay sharp, stay progressive, and above all, stay tuned.